Sorry.
You paint the walls. It's a little sterile.
That's what gets John Hall up here.
That's true. I'm Evan Gluck. I run New York Guitar Repair in New York City. And does everyone know me? Probably at this point. So I have a super busy shop, and a lot of the stuff that I like to do is figure out ways to make my job go faster and more efficiently, where I don't get bogged down in specific things because I'll have 30 guitars behind me that I have to work on, so if I can get something in and out the door super quick, it's great. Does anyone know who TJ Thompson is here? Everybody, right? Okay, so years ago, TJ told me that he was using this dental light curing system for he's like the top basic vintage restoration guy for Martin. So, if you have a 30s Martin and you have a chip in the nut or something like that, or a chip in the saddle, you don't want to change that original part. You want to try and do something to keep that, you want to keep that part on the guitar. So he told me that he's been using the same material that dentists use for fillings to fix these things. So, I got super excited about it. So when I got home, I wrote him an email. I said, hey man, can you send me pictures of what you're using? And so he did, like, immediately, because he's great. And then I did every other thing in the world before I got around to actually thinking about doing this. And this is literally years later. It was always like in the back of my mind to get into this stuff, except I'm like an idiot. So I was just doing all my work all the time and not following up on it. I don't know if any of you people have heard any of my business spiels, but one of the things that I talk about a lot is try and do free work for people when you can, and you never know when it's going to come back karma-wise. So there was this really nice older guy who would come in he would buy all these expensive guitars, and he'd come in just to have me check them out. And if it just needed like a little truss rod something or intonation, I would just do it for free. And one day he came in and I said, hey man, what do you do? And he's like, oh, I'm a dentist. I was like, hey, you know what? I've been super interested in using what you guys use for fillings for doing guitar repairing. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. He's like, oh, I'll FedEx it to you tomorrow. So he sends me a light, all the stuff that I need, and then a little note that says, I'll stop by your shop tomorrow and I'll show you how to use it. So do free stuff for people. You never know when it's going to come back to haunt you or hook you up in some way. And so this guy was super nice about just showing me how to use it and sending it to me. And then when I looked up what he sent me an $800 dental light that he never used. Because look, how many times has a company in our industry sent you a tool to beta test, right? They do that apparently in every industry. So they send dentists all of this crap, and they don't use it. And the best part about what we do is, because the stakes are super low in what we do, we can use stuff that is expired because it's not going in someone's mouth. So you can ask your dentist. We hope. Yeah. I mean, I do. In the living room, I run a really shoddy dental and butt cheek implant sort of service in my shop. But I'm just kidding. I don't do the dentist stuff. No, I know. So he sent me this stuff, and the second I started working with it, I was like, holy crap, this is amazing. And because essentially what it is you're taking a material that in its raw form is completely malleable and sort of, it's almost like a Play-Doh type of stuff, and then you hit it with a light for 40 seconds, and it's harder than bone. So if you think about what you can do with that then, as far as, I'm doing a mandolin, and I've done one swipe too much on the nut, and now I have to make a new nut. Or I can, in 40 seconds, do an invisible repair, and it's done. The other, the two kind of schools of how I will use this stuff is, one is a vintage guitar, where I sort of don't want to change an original part, but want to maintain everything that's on the guitar and just repair a part, like say on a through saddle that has a chip in it, a nut that has a chip in it or it's too low. And while it might be a slightly visible repair because the compounds come in a variety of colors, but it is a different material, I'd still rather have that than replace an entire part on the guitar. The other way to do it is, let's say you have a kid with a cheap guitar I can say to them, hey, you know what, I can do this repair for like $100 and replace your nut, or I can do this thing for $10 in 40 seconds that will get you running, and that's better for me. So alternate titles for this workshop is I'm too lazy to cut you a new nut, or I don't have time for this crap. So I want to be able to do something that's like super quick and permanent because how many people here have teeth? Okay. How many people have fillings in those teeth? Okay. No?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
You? No fillings?
He doesn't.
I've never had cavity.
Oh man. Just go out. So anyway, the only time I ever broke a filling was eating a coconut. Okay? And in all my years of guitar work, it's very rare that the coconut and the guitar interact. So I think we're kind of safe here, as far as a repair that's going to have some kind of longevity. So I chose a couple of things that I do sort of on a regular basis. I really didn't prep much for this because I don't get to prep when things come into my shop. There's no preparation. It's just like, a guitar will come in and I'm like, oh crap, and then I have to figure out how to do something. But I've come up with a bunch of other sort of side uses for this thing, which are kind of cool, and I'll go over that. First off, I'm going to talk about this. Because the repair technique takes 40 seconds, I'm really going to stretch this whole thing. So let me tell you about dinosaurs. So let me tell you about this guitar. You knew what this was from this. I was super impressed. Okay, this is a guitar built by Mike Padula. He's a really primarily known as a bass builder, and he builds like amazing fretless basses that he's really known for. But he built a few guitars, and this guitar was when I worked on 48th Street at a store called Alex's Music. This was like the test guitar, where like if you wanted to try an amp or a pedal or something like that, this guitar was the guitar that you had, that we would give you to try. And when I left Alex's and went to Manny's, Alex was going out of business. So I called up the manager of Alex's and I said, hey man, I really want this guitar. And he said, it was for $1,500. And he said, how much is this now? It's like $900. And I said, well, I can't afford that. And it was the last day, he's like, how much do you have? And I said, I have $90 in my wallet. He's like, come on in. So I got this thing for that. So this then became a guitar that I sort of tried different experiments on over the years. Like this is, believe it or not, this is a heater epoxy fret gel, because when I read that book, I was like, let me try this. So I routed out all the fret slots and epoxied the frets in and really buggered this thing. When I was a kid, I took all the finish off the neck and tongue oiled it. And then when this was my favorite thing. Does anyone know what this hole is for? Cathartic reasons. I was talking to a friend of mine, and I was sort of like I do some peer counseling with people. She was a peer counselor. A lot of the things that I stress out about are damaging people's guitars, right? My whole, that's what we do. It's do no harm, right? So she said, you know what you should do? You should like intentionally damage something. So I just took this guitar and I just drilled a hole right through it and then wrote sorry next to it. And it was like just this like cathartic thing to do, and it really like freed up a lot of brain space. So I did better on this than somebody else's, so, because it was coming. I mean, I was going to drill a hole through somebody's guitar the next day. So it had to be this one. So what I did then was I actually took this guitar and I do a lot of electronic wiring and stuff like that. So what I did was I took this guitar, pulled out the original Bartolini stuff, which we did out, and then rewired this in a modified Jimmy Page wiring, because while it seems like I like to talk, I don't really like to talk when I'm in my shop. So what I'll do is, what am I supposed to say? Out of phase sounds like a 70s porn movie? No, I want to be able to plug in a guitar that has an out of phase setting and say this is what it sounds like, this is what series parallel sounds like. So what this guitar is essentially 2 4-conductor wired humbuckers, so 4 push-pull cogs, so it does split coil, 3 push-pull cogs, I changed it. Split coil, out of phase, series parallel for both pickups, and then one of the pickups is hooked up so that this position is in single coil, and then humbucker, and then in parallel, just so that you can hear what all of these different sounds sound like. And if you have a guitar in your shop that is just kind of flanging around that you don't know what to do with, this thing has made me so much money because I can just say, hey man, isn't this cool? Or this has saved me so much aggravation where I can be like, do you see how stupid having both pickups in series sounds? And then I just don't have to do it. So I like having this guitar around. It's kind of, and so what I started doing was, folks who came into my shop who I liked, I would just have them sign it. So it's becoming more of a smorgasbord of stuff, and everyone gets to sign this guitar or the Sharpie. So, all right. I'm done. So, okay. So, yeah, thank you. That's for my next dental trip. So, yeah, let's get cracking on this. So, this is the dental light. So it looks really super cool. I'm sure it's gonna work. Yay! Okay. This would have been super short. Here's the warning. This is a super high intensity, bright, crazy light. So when I am working on it, I have a light shield in front of me. You do not. So I'm going to ask you when I turn this light on not to look directly at the light. Okay, do I have everyone's agreement here? Okay. Yeah, all right. So let's fuck something. Okay. I never sit when I work, so this is kind of
More or less. Not sometimes some compact and small like that, but I have I don't need much.
So, super important. Whenever you buy glasses, make sure that your close glasses look exactly the same as your distance glasses, so that every now and then you think you have a brain tumor. So it's awesome. So as I get older, it's actually funny. This is like for years I worked without getting like close-up glasses, and then I was trying to read a pill bottle, and I was like, oh, this is not happening. So I got these things, and the first time I looked at a nut, I said to myself, how have they let me get away with the work that I've been doing for the last 8 years? Because I could finally see stuff, and I was like, oh man, I think I was operating on smell for 5 years in guitar. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this G string and pretend I'm cutting a nut. Oh, by the way, the cool thing about this guitar is Mike Padula, great builder, maybe not so good at making straight hexagon inlays in his fingerboard. So I looked at this thing and I was like, the hexagon inlays are not quite level. So I said to my wife, I was like, you know what, I'm going to inlay this with Roman numerals. And she's Israeli, and she's like, why don't you do Hebrew letters? Because the Hebrew letters can represent the numbers. So it's 3, 5, 7, 9, 12, 15, all in Hebrew. So I thought that was kind of cool. So, unique. Unique. So I'm going to cut this nut. I'm so nervous. Are you guys nervous?
Don't
You're
fuck it up.
using the wrong hand.
No. Do you notice anything about the way I work?
Lefty.
Totally. And I'm right-handed, and this was
Exactly the same thing that scares me.
yeah, it scares me too. Because you have less hair than me. No, that's where it's all, that's where it's all going. I know, yeah. So
There was a young fellow I trained when I worked at the gun company in Ithaca who was right-handed, but I'm left-handed.
So you're
And
talking.
he learned to do stuff left-handed.
Exactly. It's what I did was when I worked in a music store, the area where I worked in, there was a wall here, so I couldn't have a headstock pointed at the wall. So I had to point it this way. So what freaks me out is I usually do most of my work with my non-dominant hand. And one time I was resetting the neck on a ukulele banjo. Chisel went through through here, right? And I had to cut a nut for a G&L bass that night. So I flipped everything over and did it right-handed. I was like, oh yeah, this is my real hand. And like, it just, I had this hand bandaged up, and I was like, going this way. I was like, oh, that's my real hand. But it's awesome when Eric Coleman or somebody else and I do presentations together. It's cool because the head slabs are pointing away from each other, so we don't like get in each other's way. So anyway, enough talk. More wreckage.
So what are you doing right now?
Right now, I am doing what I do most of the time in my shop, which is cutting nut slot to low. I'm lowering the action. I may use the hogging pliers.
Good rationale for a zero fret.
Joe. Thank you. I had the super pleasure of working on one of Joe's guitars recently, a double neck trace. Is it 6-string
Trace and standard 6.
And standard 6, and man, what a cool thing to have in my shop. It was built so wrong. No, it had an electronic failure. It just had a part that the electronic.
It's a comedy thing.
It was a comedy thing, yeah. It had an electronic part that failed. So, just so you know, my policy, as Joe now knows, is that if you're a small builder and you have a problem in New York, and it's not something that is your fault. In other words, you did
Meaning
not.
short?
Huh?
Small meaning short?
Short.
Small builder?
Small builder, short builder, small builder, fat builder, thin builder. If you have a problem and it's something that is sort of simple and not really going to take up a lot of my time, I don't charge people for that because it's a courtesy to this community. Like I don't need that money. So, but I charge Joe a hug, and I've gotten 2 so far, so it pays off.
So is it fun to wreak havoc like that?
It's so fun to do stuff wrong and like just do something terrible to each other. It's amazing because it's just so.
I can remember Matt Newman telling the story about people in his shop getting so frustrated that he took an old piece of crap guitar, hung it on a tree outside, and had them all shoot with a shotgun.
Oh yeah. Yeah, my favorite story about that is, does anyone remember We Buy Guitars on 48th Street? There's a guy named Richie Friedman who, yeah, you know Richie. So, a guy came in to buy like his 70s SG, and he says to the guy, says to Richie, he's like, yeah, it's got like a scratch in it, and he's like, $400. He's like, but look, it's got this little thing in it, and Richie's like, $400. He's like, but it's got this thing, and Richie takes out a hammer and a nail, hammers a nail into it, and says, now it's got a nail in it. $400. I love stuff like that. So okay, so as you can hear, we have note, not so notey. So something has gone wrong. So what I'm going to do is through the magic of dentistry. Isn't it weird how excited everyone is to be at the dentist today? Which is like a thing, It's actually, I don't know if you know this, but the highest suicide rate of any profession is dentistry. And I believe it's because nobody's happy to see them. So they're just sort of...
Second is veterinarians.
Second is veterinarians. What's the most dangerous profession? Just in all of human history, what is the most dangerous profession? What? Astronaut. Because most astronauts actually killed in proportion to the amount of astronauts that are. I focus a lot on death in my shop. It's makes the day go faster. All right, so great. Now the pressure's off. All right, so less pressure. Thank you. Now my dad has to come back to life and come in here, and then it'll just be a perfect room. Okay, so.
How many hours?
Well, don't we take everything a little too serious? Just a little, your toys, and kind of got a Geppetto thing happening here, so it's like, I'm a real guitar. Okay. So, Okay, so let's talk about, believe it or not, dentistry for a second. What this stuff essentially is a light cured ceramic. So I do not really know how it works. I don't know how my Apple TV works yet. I accept it as a super cool thing. So I'm gonna leave the science to others about this. But you know, what the dentist will do is they will essentially do what I will do is take out bad material in your tooth, and then what they use is a phosphoric acid to etch the bone essentially so that the bone will accept the bonding agent. Then they put some bonding agent in, then they cure that with a light cure thing, and then they put a compound in which sticks to the bonding agent which has bonded to the etched bone, and then they get that with the light. And what's cool about it is you can kind of form it into any sort of shape or whatever you want, and then it'll dry basically rock hard. It's not even rock hard, it's actually harder to file than bone. And what I like about it, like how many methods are there of filling in a nut slot? There's super glue, there's super glue in baking soda, there's super glue in toilet paper, thank you. There's bone dust and super glue. There's what I saw come out of a shop that is super popular that I will not name, putting a shitload of relief in the neck and jacking up the action. And I was like, oh, when I straightened the neck, I was like, oh, no wonder they left the neck like this. So there's there's pulling out the nut and shimming it up with different materials like that. You know, that's something that I'll do. You know, I'm a repair guy. I'm not a freaking artist. So it's like Frank Ford had one of those great ideas, which is taking Post-it notes, not Post-it notes, but postal labels. And because you can stack them and they're adhesive and you can put them under a nut. What I'll do is if I ever do that, I'll actually soak them in super glue while I'm doing it so that at least it becomes a harder material. Or you can take a bone shim. LMI sells these really cool thin bone shims that you can use, so I've used those before. What's that? Banjo skins, I've never used that because of my aversion to banjos. But I can see that working. I know the material because I can see where that works. What this does is you're not disturbing anything on the bottom of the nut. So if this is a vintage guitar, I'm maintaining that like, who likes refinishing the sides of a nut on a Les Paul? When you you like all things that shouldn't be like that. So who likes doing that? One cool thing about this I'll show you at the end is this actually does it too. So because you can use the bonding agent as a finish and then light cure it, and it's actually a good facsimile of the nitro on the side of a nut. So my whole thing is that I am terrified of everything I do. So these things scare the hell out of me. My customers scare me. Vintage guitars scare me. So the last thing that I want to do is something that is non-reversible. I don't want to break a joint that has been there for 60 years. I don't want to disturb a finish that's been there for 60 years. I don't want to do something wrong while I'm heating up a bridge to pull out a saddle. I would rather fix something. And I think it's, I think this is all from being a younger sibling where my mom always tells the story that my brother is 2.5 years older than me, so she would buy all of our toys in duplicates, and then he would break his and then take mine. So I thought all toys came in 2 pieces, and that was because I always had broken toys. So I think that translated into my desire to fix what's here rather than to replace with something. So, wonderful childhood, it's a whole other lecture. So, here's what I'm going to do. This is phosphoric acid. I'm going to hand this around. No, I'm going to... So, I just dig it because it's blue. If this was not blue, I don't think I'd be doing this lecture. But this is like a super cool color for any product. I think this is great. So, what you do is it comes in different formats, but I was lucky enough to get this little syringe, and it's got like a little gelatinous quality to it. It's not going to go like an alien or something like that. So I'm going to inject a little of this stuff into the nut slide, and then lift the tip. Then you let that work for 6 or 7 hours. No, for about 15 seconds. That's what the second bottle of water was for. See if this will work. I do have welding skills. Then I'll take a little Q-tip or something, just to get the acid out of the nut. Can people see what I'm actually doing? Vaguely, I thought a little bit about the fact that this is a flat room and this is low. If anyone wants to come up to see what I'm doing, please feel free. Don't go behind me, because that always freaks me out. Okay, so I've etched that. I think that was a good 15 seconds or so. So this is the bonding agent. And what's cool about the bonding agent is it's super clear, like it's just like this. It almost has the viscosity of medium viscosity super glue, but it's not. You can just kind of see it on the tip of this little thing, right? So I'm just going to go in there and that's the bonding agent. Now, what did we break?
Have you ever tried any of this?
Oh my God, do you have an inflator? Okay, then I'm going to wipe off the bonding agent, because whatever I hit with the light cure is going to cure. And you could always say,
Have you ever tried any stuff like that with any shiny thing on the inside?
no, because it's so viscous that it doesn't. And if you do, you wipe it off before you hit it with the light.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm actually going to ask everyone to go back to the seats while I use this light.
You don't have glasses?
No, it hasn't.
Pass it
been
around?
shown. No, but. All right, so. No, I'm going to warn you guys when I'm going to use the light. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to warn you guys. So, all right, so I'm about to warn you. Okay. Okay, so.
You don't want us looking?
No. Don't look directly at it.
No, don't look directly
Yeah.
at the light.
Okay. Actually, in fact, everyone take out your phones and like find a picture of a loved one or something like that, just in case this is the last image that you are able to actually see. So,
You're just looking at the top of your head.
yeah, just something, And the way I want to work this so that everybody can see is when the people in the front row can't see anything anymore, they're going to go to the back, and the second row is going to come up so they can see for a couple of seconds. Okay. All right, so I am actually going to do this now, so please do not look directly at this. Okay. So, you've been to the dentist, you'll know this sound. So I'm actually holding it to the point, everybody look, no, I'm kidding. I'm actually holding it to the point where I'm almost touching the nut. So I like to do 2 passes at it, front and back, so I'm getting both sides of this. Please, Dan, don't look at this. Very good. You've seen enough, all right? It's so cool. It's like every time I use this, I feel like I went to college or something.
So it's just an ultraviolet light.
Exactly. And to be honest with you, you would have to really look at this thing for a long time to collect damage. I'm just trying to be cautious here.
Does it actually penetrate the material?
Oh, sure.
Well, so like, with UV finish, you hit it, it doesn't really go.
Yeah, this
through it
seems to
very
be
well.
fairly penetrating because, again, the amount of material that I'm generally using for this is not great. And what I'll do is, I'm going to do another repair in a little bit that's a little more, where we're going to add a little more material to something. And what I'll do is I'll do several passes of it, in other words, where I'll put on a layer and then hit it with the light, then a little more bonding agent, hit it with the light, then another light, and just build up.
So what's the most you might build up in one pass?
I've done the entire side of a nut. So imagine a Gibson or something where the low E string has fractured and broken off at the center of the low E string, and the nut has disappeared off to the side of that. So I've rebuilt that entire thing, and I think it was 3 passes of the material. So now, if you take that into account, that is, without me talking all this crap, that's about a 3-minute job to fix a nut rather than however long it takes me to make a nut, which is kind of a good cost time effective thing. So now one little thing is, every now and then, let's see what's going on here. So in this particular case, the bonding agent alone has solved my problem. So I could go on and start adding a ceramic insert in this, but if this is, like, in other words, every now and then you'll do like the, one swipe too many with the nut file. So you've gone just a little bit too close. So what I'll do is I'll actually just take the bonding agent, just do a little swipe in there, light it, and it's harder and more durable than any super glue type of thing that you've ever done. And it stays in there, it doesn't do anything, and it doesn't bind. Which, do you hear that? There's no popping or anything like that, which is like really a useful thing, because, you know, we can usually get away with these sort of super glue repairs, except when you have angled headstocks, where it digs into the material just a little bit. That's where you start getting your ping, ping, ping stuff. So this stuff I find is a little more forgiving for that. It's a much smoother sort of thing that doesn't really dent when the string hits it like super glue. However hard you get your medium viscosity super glue or thin viscosity, when the string hits it, it's still deforming the crown of what you've set there a little bit, I think. And this stuff it doesn't seem to, which is nice. But I am going to go ahead and do one of these little fills in here. Any questions so far?
So let's say like what you just did where the bonding agent was enough to kind of take care of the problem. Do you still want to go in there and maybe clean up that slot? How, like, is that slot just going to be perfect?
Well, no, the slot may in fact be too high, in which case I can file it a little bit and it'll be fine.
Right.
Or, yeah, so it is fileable material.
Right.
Yeah. The ceramic material, when you put it in, is also fileable. I never did say that right. It can be filed. But the material is actually a little harder than the material that's surrounding it. So what I find is that, like, if I'm filling up a complete slot, I don't want to fill it up so that there's no little tiny divot for me to get a file in, because what inevitably happens is when you fill it up, the material is almost glass-like, and your file is going to skate off to the side of it. So you want to have a little bit of a groove there just to pilot the file. So I'm going to use one of these things. So these things are kind of super cool. These are all from the dentist, and they come in like all these like neat little shades of white. So like this is sort of like a off-whitish. I haven't really, there's like 40 or 60 of these, and I haven't really experimented so much. This is a little whiter than the last one with all of the color palette, because I'm not really trying to do this like an artist. I'm just doing repairs. I think eventually I'll get into more of this stuff, as far as this one's a little whiter than the others.
Blue, it doesn't.
A little bluish white, yeah.
No, blue.
Oh, yeah. And then this one is like, ew, what happened to your teeth?
Yeah, are those, like, is that the compound or?
Yeah, I'm actually going to hand one of these around so you can kind of feel what the
But that's the
compound is.
stuff that's gonna go in that you're gonna.
Exactly, yeah. So here, let me hand one of these guys around.
You want it back?
Well, and do you have a use for it?
They don't make them in black, do they?
No, yeah, so it's,
You ever tried mixing it with dye?
I haven't yet, yeah, and because most of the stuff I'm doing is whites, anything I'm not thinking that's outside the box with it yet, but I do like I love what this stuff is. It's really interesting. So I'll just hand this around, and it's like, you'll feel what it is, don't eat it.
Even though it goes in your mouth.
Yeah, it goes in your mouth, but you're not supposed to eat it. So I'm going to spend seconds of exhaustive research picking out a color match for this. That one's a little more.
It's a big set.
It's weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
Super weird.
Super weird, yeah.
Super weird.
So what I do is use a little X-Acto knife. It's good to wash your hands, because whatever you translate into this will translate into the fill. So if you have I mean, it's super funny. I used that black foam on my bench, and what I realized was like, there were all these little particles of black that were always coming out and everything that I never really noticed until I started working with this stuff. Because inevitably, it would pick up a little black particle and it would be in the fill. So then I changed what I work on to something that isn't so, it doesn't deconstruct over time. So I'm going to slice like just a little tiny bit off. It's weird stuff. It doesn't sort of respond like
This
most
is all the
of it.
weird stuff they do when you're lubricant on the floor.
Totally, exactly. Well, the dentist is talking about his fishing trip and asking you multisyllabic answer questions while you have a whole bunch of crap in your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, don't they know? Haven't they been doing this long enough? So what I'll actually do is, you know, some of these like little cool nut files have an end that doesn't have a filing part. I'll actually use that to mash it in there because I know it's going to go in the slot. It'll make somewhat of a smooth thing. So I'm creating this little fill here. And obviously this goes quicker in my shop. And then what you really want to do is clean up any area that the material has spilled out on as you're mashing it in. So X-Acto knives are good for this, razor blades.
So golden enough to
Is that-
make work for yourself.
To what?
To make work for yourself.
Oh, totally.
Does that stuff adhere to pretty much anything?
We're going to get into that shortly. Oh, so that looks good. So I'm going to hit it with a light. What I've figured out to do is cap everything because you never know where the light's going to go, and since it cures this stuff, you certainly don't need a tube of solid material to use. So I'm going to hit this again. Everyone, remember, stare directly at the light. Okay, I'm going to do it one more time. Okay, so.
It's not really as bad as getting hit with a ball.
No, certainly not. I don't think many things are. So, has everyone gotten a little feel of what this stuff feels like yet? Yeah. Okay, so that is some pretty soft, gummy stuff, right? So listen to this now. Can anyone hear? Well, it's probably the worst demonstration I've ever done. So can anyone hear this? If you can hear what I'm doing here as far as filing goes, this stuff is here. Just come up and file this stuff. And you'll feel how hard this is. Yeah, this is.
Maybe you could bond his camera lens
Feel how hard that is?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Glassy.
Yeah, it's madness.
Do you wear gloves or anything? Do you worry about the skin exposure?
No, not really. Yeah, I mean, I'm super careful, you know. That's some hard stuff, right?
So I guess you don't want to build that up.
Exactly. Yeah, like I overkilled it here because I just wanted to build up enough slot just to see what it was doing. Anyone else want to dentistry?
Your liability expert is
Exactly.
standing over your shoulder.
harder than brass.
It's, well, yeah, it's harder than the material around it, which is like pretty awesome. So what's cool about this stuff
Necessity of.
so you know, so if you think about guitar repair and how we all, oh sure, you want to call it? Yeah, sure. It's too high anyway, so.
Bonding economics, is it like?
Is it like the same accolade?
That's light cured maybe. It's not the viscosity of that, but I have to really look into it. And what my dentist told me is that there are combination bonding etching agents. In other words, that have the bonding agent and this phosphoric acid in it.
Have you used the bonding agent for anything else?
Yeah. We're gonna get into that. Yeah. So far I've used it to keep my wife from leaving me. No, so. Oh yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, and to be honest with you, I've looked directly at it and no, it's you know, you have to remember what this light is they're putting this in your mouth. So it's not like a UV light for finishes where you gotta wear a hazmat suit. You know, this is being exposed to gums and stuff like that without killing you. So really the thing is that you just don't want to stare at it for a while and you hurt your eyes. So.
Limited exposure, do you think it's similar to MC?
Yeah, stuff like exactly stuff like that. They're probably pretty close. Yeah, like put it this way, this he's found stuff for $22.
Really?
Yeah. So okay.
Do you think it's the same?
It may not be the same quality, but if it does, the best thing to do is for $22 investment is worth trying. Get some of the bond.
Since I was moved back so far, I can see how close you holding it.
I'm holding it almost directly on it.
Just for care of.
Yeah, exactly.
And how long do you do
It's 20 seconds.
and then you said about how to take up a layer in one
I'm
time?
putting a pretty thin layer on here because you know,
Right at it.
yeah, you're more dealing with just like the depth of a nut
You don't
slot.
really need much anyway.
Exactly.
But it easily handles it.
Oh, sure. Great. So, hey guys, this is my time to shine. No, so here's what's cool about this is if you've ever done like those like super glue nut repairs and baking soda and toilet paper and whatever, there's no binding. You hear that? The string is like totally smooth and nothing is binding on there. And what's cool about it is it's hard to hear because this is an electric guitar, but if this was an acoustic guitar, it sounds good. It doesn't sound soft, it doesn't sound muffled, it doesn't, you know, it sounds homogeneous with the strings that are next to it, so it doesn't sound like I'm like, ooh, cool, repair, cool. It's like, it has this ring to it that's sort of nice.
Sound better?
Well, Dave Collins and I think it sounds better, and we have actually like joked about like doing nut upcharge, where we like insert ceramic stuff into every nut and figure out a way to charge people more for it. So this is really, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've used this just to, you know, again, I'm too lazy to make you a new nut, or I don't have time to make you a new nut, or I want to keep this nut that's there just so that I don't have to change it apart, or I have spent 18 hours making the best nut I have ever made that looks just so super amazing, and I have filed one string too soft, you know, too low, and it, you know, so I can just do this. Or you take a guitar that has a inherent problem in manufacturing, like, I don't know if anyone knows this, but the Gibson Emmylou Harris model, every single one they ever made, the E string, the high E string is off, way too far off to the side. Every single, I thought it was one, then I saw two, then I saw three, and you can actually change the spacing by filling in a nut slot and then slipping it over, and you can say to the person, there's going to be a tiny little line next to the string. Do you mind? They're like, no. So you can just move the nut slot over just a tiny little bit and fill it in. So to go back to what else you can do with this stuff is here's a really cool saddle. No, it's not really, but anyway. If you ever have a saddle that you have a string that has sort of a little groove into it, and the rest of the strings are well within the radius, and the action is where you want it to be. The way to get rid of that tiny little groove is obviously to sand down the entire saddle so that that groove no longer exists, then reshape the saddle. What this lets you do is just fill in that little spot where that is, so you're maintaining the radius and everything on the saddle without A, having to replace the saddle, B, lower the saddle, C, remove the saddle if it's something glued in where you have to hit it with a heat lamp to get it out, or as Alan and I were talking about, the newer Martin dropping, the glued through saddles that they do, which, what are they glued in?
It's just a nightmare.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare. So I would rather not have to do anything like that. And what's cool about this stuff is this doesn't react to finishes. It doesn't do anything. So I can hit any part of the guitar with it. Not, my first concern was, do I need to cover the headstock when I'm using this or anything like that? No, it doesn't do anything except interact with what it's doing. So I'm going to do a little saddle repair here, and then we'll talk about other stuff. Is this cool? Is this like neat stuff?
So this is how TJ repairs Martin nuts and saddles and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, so this is how he'll, put it this way. I'm sure it's not the only way he does it, but this is a technique that he got super excited about because of its non-destructive way of doing it. Exactly.
Evan, could you put the guitar next time?
Oh, sure. That's cool.
You could do this brass plastic bone.
We're going to get into this. So I'm going to put a little acid on here. Who sits when they work?
Depends on what
When I'm wiring.
When you wire stuff, yeah. I stand like 90% of the time, 99% of the time, and just sit when the guitar's in the playing position, I'm doing intonation. Wait for a second.
So you're dipping that in water before you kind of wake it out, or?
Well, what I'm doing is I'm getting the acid out.
Right.
So I'm dipping the Q-tip head in water, just to like swipe it through, just to get the acid, so that it's not so acidic there. And I put this stuff on my fingers, and it does what is advertised. Okay, so I'm going to use a little bonding agent. And what I find is this stuff is viscous enough that, like, whatever is just on the cap, when I pull the cap off, that's what I use. I rarely ever squeeze the stuff out. It's just sort of hanging around on the cap. And because we're using this in such minuscule amounts, like this, I got this years ago and it's still going. I have another bottle here just in case, but. All right, light. Everybody?
So now if you put the light on that,
They're
you
not
can sit
ready.
down, you could bond it to the desk, right?
I can bond in all of you to your chairs. I can, yeah. Okay, are we not looking? Okay, thank you. Because this one's kind of directly at you. But what a great way to go at it.
The last one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's so many wrong things about that.
Good way to bond this about.
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to hit it from the other side. Stumac nut and saddle vise, by the way, Dan, I am using here. I said I'm using the Stumac nut and saddle vise, which I use all the time for this. Okay, so that's all nice and dry, everyone can feel it. And so I'm going to find a little whiter compound. That looks kind of cool. So with this, you slice a little compound off. Now, I think that there is a compound that's made that's kind of like a stark white that I haven't found yet, but I'm going to look for it because I think it would be good for certain repairs. So like my hands are a little dirty, so it's translating a bit to the compound. So with this, actually, I will wear like a surgical glove sometimes if I'm really trying not to impart any of me into this. You know? Exactly.
So they're being there all over the world.
That's my goal. You know, it's a be fruitful and multiply without the mess. Okay, so I'm going to hit this with the light again. Everyone not looking. So in my shop, I would actually do this a little cooler, like so it would look a little less obvious. I might sand the material a little bit at the end. Okay, so this guy's nice and dry, so I'm just going to maybe hit it with a file a little bit. Just to smooth it out. Now bear in mind, the visibility factor is not so big on this because it is generally hidden under a string. Then what you do is polish it out a little bit. Anyone use these guys for their nails or anything?
Yeah.
These are like some of my favorite polishing for frets, for tongue nuts and bone stuff. They have like three little grits thing.
Yeah.
3 little Alaskans. They have like, yeah. So, you know, when you look at this, bear in mind that this is now under a string. So you can't really see it the way that you can see it here because right now it looks a little, like a little glass insert, but it's smooth, it does exactly what it's supposed to do. It's not going to come out, it's not going to break. I'll get that out. Thank you, sir.
So Evan, without a dental customer, is there a source for all this?
We're going to get into that in seconds.
Make friends with your dentist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'll talk more about that. Let's see. Do we all get this, or should we talk more about how to get this stuff and what to do? Because I bought like a little nut that has a chip off the side that I can do, but I think we kind of get that. We get it. Yeah. Okay. So, other things you can use this for. Actually, I'll do one more little thing, which is like the bonding agent itself is kind of cool. Because you can take it, pull a little off here. And I'm going to put it on this nut slot, or the nut. Oh, you know what? Let's do it this way. This is smart. Then I forget that. That'll never go. Because I'll forget about it.
That's a cool vibe.
That is a cool bus.
Yeah.
Sure you get a close-up of the rice.
I know exactly where I got it from. Yeah. I got it from. Exactly. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna hit this with the light, so please do not look. Well, you're in the only safe place. I was wondering what this workshop was like if everyone was behind me while I was doing this. It would be kind of fun. One more time. Oh,
Now you can just visually tell when you've got a good product.
oh yeah. So, now imagine I did this with attention. Where I like wanted this, where I really spent time making this be smooth. I could always sand this out a little bit and, you know, and flatten it a little bit. Or I could have, you know, if it was on a guitar, I would have taken the time to have the guitar off on the side, made almost like a little bubble of this stuff, and then hit it with the light cure so it looked like a Gibson finish that was continuous with the finish that was on the side of the nut. But with this, you can just get the idea that it's going to bond to this stuff.
Did you watch that with the acid first? Or no?
That I did not, and it may, you know, one of the things is that since there is no, there's no stress involved on the side of the nut finish, I'm not, you know, I probably would have, but I might have been cautious because of finish, you know. Literally, this is just, you know, it's icing on the cake, is that you're just putting this little finish thing on the side. And if somebody wants to take that finish off, they shouldn't have a guitar anyway, if that's what they're doing with their guitar, trying to pick pieces off of it. So other applications for this that I've figured out work really well is how many people install under saddle transducers? You know, Fishman's, LR bags, all that stuff. And how many of them, you know, have always 100% of the time had the perfect install where you do not have any strings that are louder or softer than others? All of us, of course, because they're the most perfect things. No, everyone has these problems. So, how do you folks go around correcting that problem? If the saddle slot is milled perfectly, the saddle is perfectly flat, everything is working as advertised, except you have a string that is too soft. What are your guys' methods? What do you guys do?
Piece of foil.
Piece of foil? Yep. Anyone else? Yeah, sanding like parts of the saddle that are too hot, that are too pingy and too loud. Yeah, I've tried everything. I've tried milk duds. I've tried like, you know, whatever, like, you know, little pieces of paper stacked up. I've tried super glue. I've tried veneers of wood. I've given up. I've tried like all sorts of different things. And what I figured out with this stuff, which was kind of cool, and wherever that saddle is you can take that little bonding agent and put a little drop on the bottom of where that offensive string is and hit it with the light, and then try it and see what happens. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? The nice part about it is there's no super glue cleanup. I can sand whatever off of it in seconds if I have to, add more, and the cost and time is 40 seconds while I'm doing this, rather than coming up with a shim. And when Mamie gets that guitar, because I fucked up something else on it, and she pulls that saddle, she may not notice that that's there, but she would notice all the bits of paper that I had jammed underneath there, and then would say, who the hell did this? And they would say, Evan. So I like to have my shoddy repair work be as invisible as possible, and this is certainly letting me do this. So yeah, so you're able to build up this material a little bit, and then harden it, and then try it, sand it, or add more. And I've fixed a couple of these under saddle problems with this, just by getting that little bit of ounce of pressure without disturbing the rest of the saddle slot, because you can pinpoint exactly where you're putting it. And it doesn't run. It doesn't like where super glue will kind of get a little bit all over the place, and then you're filing it in a little bit. This is just like it's good, and then you harden it, and it's good. Other stuff I use this for is, somebody asked me, does it work with other things? Yes, and here's, I've used the bonding agent in tusk nuts in the slots if a slot is too low without any problem as far as string clearance going, and the string gliding across the nut didn't seem to impact in any way. I've rebuilt the sides of plastic and composite nuts, providing that it is not stress bearing. In other words, if you have a headstock where the strings are splaying out, and the reason why it broke off in the first place is because like one of the strings wants to flip off to the side. On the bone stuff, it works great. Ivory works great. On the composite materials, it's hit or miss. I've had some that worked, but on somewhere like just the slot is still intact and the top part is sheared off or broken off, I can rebuild that in 40 seconds and then polish it out, and it looks nice, and you're back on the road and you're playing it. So it's been super useful for so many like quick repairs. I mean, like I said in the beginning, the two schools of thought, this is a wonderful system for a quick repair, but it's an absolutely amazing system for a critical repair, where you're doing something where you do not want to mess with the integrity of this guitar, and you can insert something that is reversible, just in case you then have to go do something. I'm not like dripping super glue all over the guitar. Almost invisible, if not invisible, and sounds good. And that's really the most important thing, is because if you do something that does not sound good in one particular spot, that's the thing that's going to come up about the repair, is my guitar sounds different or weird or something like that. And this stuff seems to translate tone very, very well because of its density and its sort of ceramic quality to it, which is very, very similar to bone. Otherwise, dentists would not be using it. They would figure something out. Somebody, there's a dentist actually at this thing who I was talking to last night, and he said that there is some of this stuff that actually has a sort of a different viscosity that flows a little more, which I was sort of curious about when I talked to him. So let's talk about getting this stuff, because this is super cool. One way would just be to rush the stage, take all the stuff. I'm not good at fighting. I'll lay down pretty quickly and just go back to super glue. So that's one way we can do this. Another way is, the way I is, the way I got it was sort of a fluke. Where, you don't need to do the karma thing where you do free repairs for people or blah, blah, blah. But what I found was my last dentist, who ironically lived in Roger Sadowski's building, which is like a weird thing, and just always talked to me about guitars. He's like, I'm like, yeah, man, but like, how's my mouth? And he's like, yeah, I got this 345 a couple of days ago. And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm like, this is the only time I'm not thinking about guitars, So, yeah, people who has friends who love to talk about guitars with you, and that's the only thing you don't want to talk about. Ever.
I did find, speaking with dental stuff, one way to sort of urge hang-arounders to go elsewhere is to start sanding down a bone nut, which smells remarkably
Exactly.
in this office.
Absolutely.
And they tend to leave very quickly.
Yeah, it's a very stimulating thing for people, this whole dentistry thing. It's, nobody likes the dentist and nobody wants to go there, and yeah, so it's kind of fun.
Especially if you do it with a treble.
Yeah.
You really make that smell.
And the sound and everything, it's awesome, yeah. So what I found when I told my dentist that I was using this stuff, it's like he just was like, oh my God, somebody's interested in what I do. And he just started talking to me about it, and he literally just said, if you ever need anything, just let me know. And I told him, I was like, yeah, I'll take expired stuff if you have it, because again, I can use expired stuff, it's a guitar. So, where is it? Somebody showed me the light for $22 or something like that here. They found it on, yeah, thank you. If you go online, you can find lights like this, apparently super cheap. I don't know what the quality is on them. What I did discover...
They don't sometimes don't catalyze the materials.
Right, you may have to use it a little longer.
Or maybe hang it there on a string.
Exactly. maybe go to your dentist and have your dental appointment while it's hardening. But
Take it to your dentist.
yeah, this apparently is a super good one. I had no idea that he sent me this super expensive one. But they're out there, and what I found out recently is that there is an epoxy that people are using for guitar repair that is light pure, and you're using the same kind of lights as this. And I haven't had the interest enough in experimenting with what this epoxy is, but I think it's based on the same technology that, it's a light pure something or other. I just can't imagine the epoxy having the same tone transparency as this type of ceramic material. Because this stuff, if anyone filed on this stuff,
It's very hard.
holy crap, yeah, it's like, it's filing on like the worst piece of bone you ever filed, because it's like, wow, why isn't my filing doing so much? So you want to be using this stuff, don't just lob it in there, use it just a tiny bit more than you think you're going to use it, because if you use too little, it's only 40 seconds to use more. Don't don't rush it. So with the compounds, what I have found is places I've tried to order the bonding agent I found online and was able to get it for $30 or so. And $30 this little freaking thing. So the compounds, I've run into a little issue where everyone wants my dental license. Because and it may just be that I haven't, because I have so much of this stuff and this will all last me forever. Like, it hasn't occurred to me to start looking for more of this stuff, but the one or two times that I explored it, I may have not been looking hard enough for this. They come in a range of colors that are lettered and numbered, and it's sort of like an A through D system where like this is C2, and then there's A2 and A1, and A2 seems to be one of the ones I use a lot for guitar. It's sort of a whiter sort of thing, but when you're looking at vintage guitars, what's nice having a little palette of this stuff is you can pretty much get a good color match, as far as the shade of white that whatever instrument you have worked on has become, like has it sort of, turned into something a little more brownish or a little more smoky looking, and you can find something that's actually going to fit into that. With an under nut, with a nut slot repair or something like that, I don't really care about the color. I'm just caring that the repair is going to work, because if you're anal enough to be going into your nut slots and looking underneath it, you stopped coming to me a long time ago. So, it's not. So for me, that's not, I'm not being an artist here. I'm trying to get people on the road fit, with their guitars working. I want to show you one little cool trick while we have time. Does anyone have any questions on the dental stuff? It's super cool. If you repair stuff, I can't tell you how this has changed my life and like sort of made me like really confident in when I do a repair that, I'll answer your question in a second. When I do a repair that I used to consider a job that like I'm half-assing it, I feel like I'm full-assing this now, you know what I mean? Like where I'm actually doing like this super cool repair that is high-tech and is going to last and sound good, rather than saying, oh, I'm going to see this guitar in a couple of years, I'm going to have to make a new nut for it or something like that. So,
Can you review the sourcing for that? Wasn't really
well, the
clear.
sourcing for me was just like
I know,
a friend of mine for a dentist.
Some of us are Pia.
Yeah, it's sort of like he just typed in dental light cure, I think, and all of the lights popped up on eBay. So, then the bonding agent I was able to find very easily.
I'm also finding epoxy with LEDs.
It's an LED system or something like that, so maybe that's a similar thing, but this might be different. You had a question, sir, in the back?
I came a little late today. I was just wondering quickly what all these materials are called.
Oh, okay, so it's really a three-part system when you're working with bone or ivory. So the acid is a phosphoric acid. Obviously, be cautious with any of these materials. Then there is a bonding agent that's used specifically for dental fillings. And then the material itself is a light-cured ceramic that's also used specifically for dental filling. And then it's a dental light cure, which is the gun itself, the lead itself. Sure. Any other questions about the dental stuff before I move on to just something totally random and just kind of cute?
It's not a question, but just a comment about sourcing things from dentists.
Right.
There's a dentist near me. He's not even my dentist.
Right.
And I go to him, and he sterilizes, like, he'll give me a bag of like 40 bits.
You're in already. If he's doing that,
That's what I was thinking.
he's excited about what you do already.
He was very excited.
Yeah, so just say, hey, if you have this stuff that you throw out, let me get some of it. And if what you can ask your dentist, and if they're cool, if you're having trouble getting a good version of this, see if he can get one for you, and then just buy it from him. You know, it's just, I would have bought, put it this way, I can't say I would have bought this because I didn't. In other words, it took me like sort of just a serendipitous conversation to get this thing. Had I known what it did and how it worked, I would have bought it the second PJ told me. I just didn't get it. Like, I didn't get what he was talking about and how it would impact my shop and the way I work. Because at this point, I'm using it almost daily just for quick little things. So, after doing this for so long, if something has interrupted my stupidity to come into my life daily, other than my wife, then then it means that it's valuable to me, that this is a viable thing for me to be using. So, yes, sir.
Have you had any anecdotal feedback on the longevity of it? Does it hold well? Have you
Never had
failed?
The only time it ever fails is when you first do it. So in other words, the first nut swipe will pull the filling in, and then you'll just do it again and you'll be fine. And I don't know what I may have spaced out and not used the acid, it may have just been the compound was a little contaminated when I used it, but it'll go on the first nut swipe. And then you'll be like, oh, okay, let me do it.
But not over the long term.
I have yet to have somebody come back and, me say, oh, wow, it came out or something like that, or after we do it, so which is kind of cool. So far, so good.
When did you start using this process?
Yeah, when did I start using it? Last Monday. No, it's been a couple of years now,
Okay,
so I would know at this point what was going on.
Great.
So lastly, what do you guys use for lubrication of nuts, saddles, tremolos? What do you guys like to use? Graphite. What do you use?
I said nut lube.
Nut lube. Nut lube. Anyone else have any? Oh, nice. I have found WD-40 to literally be the best. Oh, thank you so much. To literally be the best lubricant that I have ever found for nuts, like pinging nuts or nuts that seem to be lining a little bit. Tremolo posts, saddles, tunematic saddles, Bigsby's. I have not found anything better than that. What I do not like is the application system of WD-40, because that stuff just goes everywhere when you spray it. And then if you spray it into something, it goes everywhere after you spray it into something. So I started coming up with pipettes that work well for pinpoint application. Of course, everyone, this seems stupid, but it's really, really cool. So what I'll do is I'll take one of the, the long pipettes. Take one of these long guys, and I got this tip from Elliot. He did like a little trade secret video, but then because I'm a crackhead, I had to improve on it somehow. So I take one of these long pipettes, right, and then I cut it down, and then before I cut it, I fill it with whatever material I'm going to use. It's always something hyper-flammable, so this is awesome. So it'll be WD-40 or liquid drench or something that I want to have pinpoint accuracy with. Then I will take this little whip tip, which magically fits right in there. Then take some rubber shrimp tubing, and this I do over this, sink, really close to my face, because it is flammable. Whatever's in here, I've put in here it's probably flammable. So then I'll hit the rubber shrimp tubing, so that's going to keep it kind of locked in here. And then what I found is, like, if I just go like this, see if it twisted up. But this little guy will bend. I brought the one that I usually use. This guy would usually bend it like a little right angle. So then I can just sort of go like this, hit it with whatever I want, and then just put it back in like one of those little screw neck, the thing, little caddy you make that has the little thing. So this is going, and then just wipe it with a little towel. And what you can do is you can just put a little smear of WD-40 across the nut, then wipe it across. But I like to go a little more pinpoint accuracy if I'm doing tremolo posts, like on a Strat or something like a Floyd Rose. So I just have this little tiny thing that just does, but what I love is that it'll actually, I think I hit it with the flame a little too hard, but it'll actually just kink over and bend at a right angle and still allow the fluid to pass through, which is kind of cool. So that's my little stupid trick for that.
So stupid.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. Any questions on anything? Was this the worst? Do you all want to yeah. It's totally is
So far.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, thank you. I hope you guys use this. Little safety warning. I have showed you acid and something to make you blind. Do the math, okay? Just don't hurt yourselves.